I am one of your hosts, Dr. Sherelle Hobson, and you guys already know my story. So I want to make sure that before we get started on anything, that you're doing your part and you are sharing this video. It is so important that when we're bringing these guests in front of you, that you're sharing to your audience, to your surroundings, to your group of people, so that you never know who's in that group that may need to hear these stories. A lot of us, especially in the Black community, we hear stories and we don't think that it applies to us, so we just disconnect from it and we go on about our normal day or our busy day. But we need to make sure that we're putting out this information to your circle of people, because you never know who's in there that may need to hear it. It's motivating. Everyone has different stories and journeys. And again, these people come on here and they are vulnerable. And it's all for you. It's so that we can grow as a community, as a unit. So please make sure that you're taking advantage of that and sharing. Also, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Black Podcast. We need you subscribing to it. We need you sharing it. So please make sure you do your part in doing that. As I mentioned before, we have been on the Black Podcast for over a year now, close to a year and a half. And my background was in athletics, in education, or is in athletics and education. And Brian's background was a little bit different than mine, but we knew that there were some common challenges and concerns that we see, that continue to happen throughout our Black community, in particular with our young Black males. And so we're going to dive deeper into that today with our guest. He's going to be an expert in this space, and so we're just excited to have him. And so my partner in crime here, has a different background in social work and psychology. And so he can tell you more about what he's seen in that space. But ultimately, we're talking about how can we change the narrative of our young Black males. It takes a village. It takes all of us to operate in our gifts and our skills in order for us to make this move and create a change that we can all see and benefit from. So, Brian.
Yeah, she said a mouthful. It's all good stuff. But at the end of the day, we really wanted to be able to put a platform together to come into partnership and to connect with more like-minded individuals that saw the necessity of a collaborative effort when it comes to and positively impacting that next generation. Like she said, my background: psychology, social work. I actually hold degree in Spanish as well, so a lot of work in the Hispanic community. Um, Once I got to my master's level, the actual social work component of my academic background, I really focus on the social entrepreneurship method, to where I'm building ventures, I'm building companies, I'm building enterprises and partnering with other companies to generate revenue to go towards the development and sustainability of the programs that our kids need. As we see so often in our in our systems, where money is the reason why we can't provide what's necessary to help that next generation. So I'm like, okay, how can I put together these two fields that I'm navigating in? I'm doing my thing over here in the entrepreneurial space. I'm working on my social work degree. I'm working in the social work field. How can I bring about this money and figure out how I can connect it and pretty much bridge that gap? And that's pretty much the method, the mission that I've been on over the past, I don't know how many years now. But ultimately, it's all to expose that next generation to what it is that's a potential for us, and not make us or allow us to think that because of what we see around us is, the ultimate of what we have an opportunity to be. So, off that note, enough about me. For now, we're going to go ahead and welcome in our esteemed guest. Definitely looking forward to this information. Y'all buckle up. I think it's going to be a good one. Here we go, Mr. Jelani Townsell. How's it
Going
going?
on? How you guys doing? I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you for accepting the invite. Um, I was stalking you a little bit on your social media and looking at some of the things that you were doing, and
Oh,
I
good.
said, we have to get him on like right now. And so I thank you for accepting the invite. Um, and you are an expert in this space, and our audience has been waiting for you all week. So I'm just excited about hearing more about you and your journey. So we know that behind every glory is a story. And so if we can just start with the very beginning of where you're from and kind of the dynamics of your family.
All right, sounds good. Well, once again, I appreciate both of you for having me. You guys, your show is amazing. So continue to do it. Continue to spread the message. And like I told you before we got on, I wish we had this about 15 years ago during my navigation. But my name is Jelani Townsell. I grew up in Philadelphia, but went to junior high and high school in Cincinnati, Ohio. Hence why I still have this accent to this day. So I can't necessarily say I've been to Philly. I haven't heard an accent like that, but trust me, grew up in North Philly. So, but I went to undergraduate at Temple University. I was a basketball manager under the late my one of my mentors for life forever, John Chaney. I was a basketball manager there for 4 years. Upon graduation, I coached for a year right out of undergrad at a small Division III school as an assistant coach and a resident director at Regis College. And then I got an opportunity to become a graduate assistant academic advisor for the men's basketball team at the University of Connecticut, where I ended up finishing my master's there and getting my master's in sports management, just like I did at Temple, getting my bachelor's in sports management. So I was there 2008 to 2011 during the national championship years. Final Four in 2008, national championship in 2011. And then after that, I had that drive to get back into coaching. I needed to go. I had 1 year in there. I needed to get back out there. So I coached for 5 years at a small Division III college called Newberry College, which is no longer now. But those were great years. I had a great journey, the ups and downs, everything you could think of. I was one of the youngest coaches when I first got in at the head coach level in Division III. And then that journey took me to going into a nonprofit sector where I worked with youth from middle school to high school students as a mentor, college prep, in terms of just trying to get them the necessary tools and just be a shoulder to help them, guide them to achieve their, what we call post-secondary success, whether it be go to college or pick up a trade or whatnot. So, and then, I got an opportunity to get back into coaching. I'm working at the junior college level at Roxbury Community College, and I was there for 2 years until I was asked to become the athletic director there. And also my title was assistant dean and director of athletics. And then after a year of that, I got promoted to associate dean. So basically, I was running our whole entire athletic department, and I had a little hands-on in terms of being a assistant dean of students as well, and which now got me to this journey to where I'm at right now, where I'm working for a company called Volo, which is a social sports company out here in San Francisco. And we basically it's an adult leagues that we provide from every single sport you can think of, and we also have a nonprofit section within our company called the Volo Kids Foundation, in which all the money that we receive, some of the portions of that goes to providing free youth programs throughout the year within our inner city communities here in San Francisco and throughout every single city that we're in. So, even though I'm still in athletics, not in terms of the athletic department positions in higher education, but I'm still have my hands on in terms of the grassroots of, still being able to be a mentor, be a coach, going into these our communities of color mostly, just being another guide and resource, just for the stuff that I wish that I had and the students that I've had the opportunity to coach had while they were growing up until their manhood or womanhood. So that's just a very brief background. We can go to nuts and bolts. I know everybody has a lot of different stories, but that's my journey to where I'm at right now.
Well, your journey sounds amazing. Of course, you didn't give us none of the other stuff that we want to talk about as well, but we're gonna get there.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get there. I just the
So
blanket part first.
yes, so we're gonna bag all the way up to the beginning,
Mhm,
to when growing up in Philly. Talk more about did you because you grew up in Philadelphia, right?
mhm. Yep.
So if you can talk more about just kind of what your environment looked like during that time, and then what were some of the things that you did? Were you obviously? I'm guessing that since you got into coaching, you kept getting suckered into coaching. Um, I always say suckered into it because I've been suckered into it too. I've been trying
Yeah,
to
you need
leave.
some people need to take a break for a while. I
They
took a
keep
break.
bringing me back. I'm like, this is my last year dealing with y'all. I'm serious. So so before you got suckered into being a coach, of course, talk more about that journey. Were you involved in sports? What did sports do for you? Were you involved in it, or were you always were looking at from the outside? And just talk about your environment growing up in Philly. Like, what was that like?
Well, I'm one of six in my family, three boys, three girls, called the light skinned Brady Bunch, right in right in East Oak Lane in Philadelphia, right outside of North Philadelphia. So I grew up in a big family, one of those neighborhoods, nothing but people that look like me throughout the neighborhood. All the neighbors knew each other, all the families knew each other, all the siblings. And it's just one of those things you get ingrained to just gravitate, go outside. Everybody's playing sports and different activities. There wasn't any community centers I can think that we were going to. All our stuff was just we were improvising as we were going. And then when you see certain skills that you have, your parents and the people surrounding starts to pick up on that also. But I was very fortunate, because I'm the youngest brother, and I'm the second to youngest in the family. I have a little sister. So my dad is a huge tennis player, and that's how he actually became great friends with John Chaney, which later got me to where I'm at when I was talking about my first journey in my post high school life. But so I started playing tennis very early. He put all of us in tennis. I was one of those, you talk about having a Napoleon complex. I was very short, very little. I was always the little guy out there. But tennis, gave me a lot of confidence because it's just straight skill set. I know a lot of people saw that King Richard movie. I'm not saying none of us was on Serena level, but it takes a lot of time in terms of what you're doing. But you have to be exposed to it. You have to have somebody pulling you in that direction because, that's the last thing people are thinking about is getting into tennis.
Well, wait,
So,
before you go into that,
mm,
talk when you talk about tennis, right? Because in
yep.
Philly, especially in predominantly black, communities, it's basketball, it's football, it's more basketball, and it's more
Mhm.
football. And so you're out there with a tennis racket and this little bitty ball. What was that like? Was people like, why aren't you playing basketball? Why are you playing? Like, how was that transition for you? Because we're used to, basketball, football, and maybe baseball.
Yeah,
For some
yeah. I tried
people.
baseball a little bit. I got sick of that after the first couple of weeks. But the reason why was, like I said, I had older siblings that were involved with that too. My oldest brother he was the basketball player, and our age gaps are huge, so I always looked up to that. But you can always play basketball. You can always. We were always playing. Back in the day, they call it Killer Man. Basically, it's one on everybody football. You got to get the one into the other. But tennis, like I said, my brother played tennis. I was playing tennis. I know my dad tried to get my sisters into tennis, but it was we had to you had to go to like a country club, not a country club, into Arthur Ashe Center, which we did in Philadelphia, which he brought us into a group. My dad got us within a group of all of the kids that are coming from these communities of color, and we're all in one together. And we built our own tennis community. But when you go back to your individual neighborhoods, you're not going to be able to say, "Hey, you want to go play tennis?" because you won't be able to do that. But like I said, I
Right.
had my older brother and my dad that was involved, but that was something that that and as we'll get into it later, even like being as an adult, I said to myself, I wish I would have learned how to play golf growing up. I wish I had that opportunity or somebody just exposed. I needed to find one person so I can see this to make it show that like how fun it is. Same with tennis. I try to tell the guys, you guys have no idea. This is, mental toughness. You can't get mad at anybody but yourself. It's a skill set. You're using athleticism left and right. But just being within our communities, we don't have that. We're not exposed to that. You don't see it every day, but you know, I don't care what part of the country you're in, you can always play basketball. You're always going to see that. Baseball, depending on what areas you're in, and in football, you know, that's just universal. So like even little things like soccer, I'm thinking like no one plays soccer in Philly. But you know, that's one of the biggest things, you know,
Mhm.
the biggest sport in the world. So you know, it's just it's little things, but I really have to thank my parents for what they brought, you know, how they molded us and what they exposed us to, and being able to, you know, the stuff that they weren't able to do, they provided for us, and it was just all through hard work. And then, like I said, being one of the youngest son, having older brothers, being able to, you know, just have a person, a visual of, you know, the stuff that I can do. But you know, I went one way. Obviously, basketball got me. So, so that was one of the pure things that I wanted to do. So,
Yeah, and it helps that your older brothers and stuff was involved in tennis because then they probably got a little bit of the, well, you mean you playing tennis? So by the time you got there, like, the
oh
light
yeah,
skin, the
oh
light
yeah,
skin family is just gonna play tennis. They don't want to play basketball. The light skin family down the street.
you
But
know.
thank you for sharing that with us. Because a lot of we do set those limitations a lot on our athletes. I used to always tell them, stop saying that you just do one thing. I'm a basketball this. It's like, well, you haven't got a scholarship yet, so you need to be trying to play all that you can because you really don't know what you're good at. And then once you get older, then it's like, man, now here I am. I want to do USC fighting. I'm 40 years old. It's like, Sherelle, you cannot go out there and and
We
get
gotta keep it real with them
twisted
too,
up into a
you
program. Like, so it's just, it's good that you have your parents that really expose you to something different, right? Because I know just looking at Serena Williams, their show, they talked about just being introduced to something that they weren't used to, that their community wasn't doing. And so it's so important and it's so good that your parents push you to that because our parents nowadays, I feel, and this is not all parents. So before I start getting, but from my experience with working in K through 12 and higher, the lack of, uh, I don't know if it's engagement or involvement or what in the Black community, you don't hear enough of the parents saying, just try it.
yeah.
And if you do it, you're going, finish it. Nowadays, you have parents that come and say, "Oh, she wants to quit," and it's like you're letting your kids quit. Like, I can understand if they don't want to continue next year, but we
Mhm.
were always taught if you start something, you finish. Give it a try. Give it 100%. If you're not good at it, then you don't have to do it again. But you're going to finish it. So if you can talk about just the conversations that y'all had in the house about you being involved in tennis. Now, was this something that you were looking to go to college and do, or did you know that this was just something that y'all were doing while you were in high school?
Well, so I didn't really, you know, at a young age, you know, we didn't have technology or anything. You know, you just saw what you saw on TV. You know, but you know, like I said, the fortunate thing is because I played tennis. You know, I used to watch tennis on TV when I can. But of course, like I said, basketball and all that stuff was dominant. But you know, overall, I believe it's just the fact that you know being able to um, have opportunities and being exposed to it and not like you said, whenever you get into involved with something, you know, give it a try and finish it out. But we have like a very competitive family. So it's one of those like I want to play because I want to be better than you. You know,
And I want to
it's like a
win.
friendly, it's a friendly competitiveness. But you know, even when I was the smallest one, I was like, I cannot wait till I get taller, so I can beat everybody in basketball, dunk on everybody, which I eventually end up doing. But you know, it's just those little things, and you build that because, but like I said, the building of just being, you know, being in your neighborhood, which was still a very affluent neighborhood in Philadelphia. You know, all the parents were working. You know, the kids, we were all in school together. You know, it was it was an excellent community. And you know, it was just we were all being able to have that camaraderie together and push each other and pushed our confidence. So whenever you can deal with your elements that you're, you know, that's around you within your own communities, you should be able to go into whatever sport or whatever already battle tested. And even talking about that, like with going in athletics, being a coach, a lot of the stuff that we learn, what I try to tell my student athletes, especially, at the junior college and Division III level is, you are here for junior college. I say you're here for a reason. You're here because you didn't have the grades to get where you want to be, or you want to have another opportunity to get your skill set up to be able to go get a scholarship. So, whatever happened in the past, whatever stuff that happens, the level of what you set yourself to what you want to do, all I'm going to do is hold you accountable for that. Now, it might be very tough love, but you can't be upset that I'm just holding you accountable so you can achieve what you set out to do. So that itself is building confidence, because, some make it, some get out of it, some don't, but eventually they usually always come back and say, I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that discussion we had. I'll never forget when you told me I should have done this, or, but you never, looked down on me. You always kept the door open, because I know stuff happens. And then, everybody has their own story. Everybody has their own journey to where they're getting. But now it's like, you know what? Stop using that as a crutch. I know you had this, you had that, but this is what we're focusing on. You're here right now, So, that all this stuff that I've grown up in, it's got me to the point where, and especially when I was at, started getting into college, being a manager, and then going, being a graduate assistant, where you're not able to discipline or direct stuff. You're there to be a sponge, be a mentor, and also be a conscience, and then try to just, develop within by looking from the outside in, but while being involved to see what you eventually, I've been here. I've heard these guys say that. I know they need this. Hear it from the coach's side. I hear from everybody. I see all these different types of players coming from all different types of different situations, backgrounds. And we're here all together. How are we going to mold this together? How is this going to happen when I start coaching? How am I going to do? What is the stuff that I've seen firsthand and learn? Because you can't take a blueprint from something else and make it your own. You have to develop and mold it to which is unique with the people that you have around you and the people that you have within your student athletes. So I know that's a very long-winded answer.
No,
Segue.
it's great. Thank you for that.
Thorough, nice and thorough. I go back to some of the things that you were mentioning earlier. Just in certain positions you've been able to hold so far. I think it's so important for us. And we had a couple of weeks ago a superintendent that was super young when he started in his role, and we don't see that often. So whenever we do see it, I love the fact that, with this platform, we have the opportunity to display that, because someone may look at you and just automatically assume that he has only been able to, cap it off to, a certain level just because of, the look of your age. And then the same thing, you getting a black male. There's certain external stereotypes or external expectations that are placed upon us that will start to permeate throughout the environment and become like the fact if we don't say anything or really, showcase individuals that are living in those spaces. And then another thing, and I'm sitting here, I'm laughing on the inside when I hear you talking about how you wanted to just be good enough, eventually go and beat everybody else in sports and such. And I remember coming up, it was similar with me. Literally from the time I can remember, I was holding the basketball. And my mom and dad have pictures from when I was little. And, somebody's trying to push me off the court, like, get off the court, because I always wanted to be out there playing basketball. It was just a way of life for us. And I went through school, ended up being a 4-sport athlete: football, baseball, basketball, and I ran track. But I didn't make it to that next level. I had some offers to go JUCO, but I was like, nope, I'm going straight D1. So I tried to walk on football D1. Didn't make the cut. They weren't really looking for the skills and such that I had been practicing, nothing but speed. And my speed wasn't where they wanted it. Anyways, fast forward about 3-4 years, and I had a son. And I'm sitting here like, yes, I got another chance. So I'm thinking, like, I got to live vicariously through this little scam. My dad is like, hey, you're going to be our next little baseball player. But then as he aged, dude ain't got an athletic bone in his body.
Oh,
Now, that's how he exemplified over the first
mhm,
10, 12 years. But now he's talking about, I want to play football. I want to play basketball. And I'm like, look, what are the positions on a basketball court? It's the shooter. What are the positions on the football field? When you can tell me what the positions are, then we'll have a conversation about you actually playing. But he's at that age where his peers are playing, so on and so forth.
mhm,
So
mhm,
he's getting more of a desire to do it at the recreational level. So I love that.
mhm.
But it's just one of those things that you mentioned earlier, or you alluded to, is we can automatically assume that just because we are raised in a certain type of family that we're going to go a certain route.
Mhm,
And I think it's so important for us to embrace who our kids
mhm,
are. My son is in a band, and
mhm,
I had never been in the band. Like that
mhm,
was nothing I cared to be in. But as
mhm.
I got older, like man, if I would have learned some instrument, some of these ladies they like me, an instrument. So I tell him, look, you keep on because he's in percussions. Keep on learning your drums, and it'll serve you well one of these
Mhm,
days.
mhm.
But just love that you mentioned, some of those messages, and I feel that sometimes those are kind of skated over, and we don't realize the importance of not forcing upon that next generation, and letting them grow into who it is that they're meant to be, and then guiding them along the way.
Yeah, and that's why I said I always just bring him in there, tell him like it is, because the situation, the circumstance, you came here, and then now it's just I want to get you out. Like even with my student athletes, my former student athletes that want to get into coaching, they're the first one to call coach. I want to do what you did. I'm like, I don't want you to do what I did. I don't want you to do my path at all. The paychecks were very, very small. The struggle was real. You guys have no idea. But I came to work every day with a smile on my face. But I was like, but I don't. I want you to pursue your dream, but I'm going to give you the God's honest truth, and then I want you to also not do the same path that I do, and I want to make it better for you. So
Yeah.
a lot of stuff like that is just, and then just holding them, like I said, holding them accountable to what they set out to do. Because even if they don't get there, they might find something else in that journey while they were trying to get to where they wanted to get to.
And that's big. You say journey. So many people, they see you in your position, and what they really want is the result, but they don't understand the process. So everybody wants the result, but they don't want to go through the process. So I love the fact that you tell them how it is, because I remember when I was coming up, and I was thinking about, or I didn't really think about it back then, but when I was in college, looking back on it, I'm like, dang, I used to look so down on social workers. I was like, that's them fake
Yeah.
professionals. Like, nobody want, wow, ew. Why you want to work? Because, going to the health department, like, that looks like the most boring, like, I just want to die type of job. And then
We
as
said
I
it was
as I
vice
got
versa. When
older,
I was like, that's a tough job.
yeah. And it's like, I don't want to have to deal with all that. But then I saw what all comes with it, but also
Mhm.
the impact that you're making. So the whole, the internal component of it. But at the same time, like I ain't trying to be broke like them. So I'm going in
They
this
don't. They don't talk. They don't tell you that part. They do not tell you that
exactly.
part.
So I'm like, I'm going in this direction. I'm gonna get
They
in
tell
this
you
social
follow
work
your dreams.
field. Yeah, I'm gonna get in the
Dreams
social
come
work
with
field.
a cost, debt. That's what it's called. The bills don't
Yes,
stop.
exactly. But we gotta teach and show these young people that you don't have to do it the same way that the person before you did it.
Mhm.
Just because they took this set of coursework, they went to this type of position, doesn't mean it has to look the same way for you. Whereas when I was going through the program, I had a mentee. He would always tell me, "B, I'm gonna be just like you, man. Be just like you. Don't be just like me. You be you, but the best version of yourself."
Mhm.
So many of our our classmates, so on and so forth, were going the traditional route, taking the classes, preparing for their licensure, getting all stressed
Mhm.
out to take the licensure exam. And I'm up here like, nope, I'm gonna go and talk to that person over there at that one company that has a partnership with that organization. I'm gonna figure out how they did that. I'm gonna go and partner with this, have a conversation with the mayor and figure out how he got to where he is, and what I'm gonna make the right connections in the network so my path looks completely different. So last couple of months, of that specific program, while all my classmates pulling their hair out talking about this licensure exam, I'm signing a contract for a 5-figure check to
Mhm.
partner up and help run an organization because I'm not gonna go the cookie cutter route. And I feel like so many, they assume that there's a certain base route to go, and they don't carve their own path. So, what can you say specifically to where you are and how you've gotten to where you are? What would you say some of the things that you took the leap of faith on to be different, and how that got you to where you are?
Well, that's the key to a lot of the decisions that I made. One is I'm the first one to go this route. I came from a family, a lot of educators, a lot of teachers. My dad was a salesman for GE for years. I was the first one to go in, athletics, higher education. My path, I didn't have anybody to look to, for guidance, outside of the coaches, but even with that, I really didn't know exactly that I wanted to get into coaching, not until by my junior, senior year in college. And even when I got to that point, I really didn't lean on anybody, but because it was like, I want to do this by myself. I want to get this on my own. Um, and yeah, just a little message right there. You, a lot of stuff you can't do on your own. You
Oh,
got to speak up because a lot of people don't understand what you're trying to do, and you don't know who can help you. Because a lot of people helped me that I did not even know that was observing the stuff that I was doing. But that's a little side note. But it was just it going into it. I really felt that it really I needed to set a foundation on which it was an unknown path. So, I go into coaching because I want to do coaching. And then I get approached, from working. I was working University of Connecticut basketball camps for years. And, I was just one of 60 coaches every single time. And then one of the coaches on the staff, George Blaney, he was the associate head coach. He called me in his office after, I told him, I said, hey, I'm about to coach. It's part time, but I'm getting into. I'm about to be a college basketball coach, doing the stuff that I wanted to do. And he said, "Hey, we might have an opportunity here at the school, but did you take your GREs?" I was like, "I'm not trying to go back to school." He was like, "Well, I'm telling you right now, it might be a possibility, it might not, but we've really been watching you. We like how you interact with our athletes and the kids that come through our camp, and we just, we think that you would be a good fit, but nothing's promised, And then fast forward, they're offering me a graduate assistant position, and I'm working in on the academic side. And this is Dr. Sharrell. You said keep it real. I wasn't your best student at all, especially undergrad. Oh my Lord, undergrad, freshman year struggle was an absolute struggle. Even though I was a manager on the basketball team, I was a part of the team, so it was a lot of stuff.
Part of the team and part of the problem, huh?
Oh, and part of the problem always, and it, even those hiccups, got me to, it straightened me out, and then, getting into it, and now I'm dealing with stuff where I'm dealing with potential, no, not potential, well, eventually pro athletes, NBA players, and trying to get them, convince them to go to school without any authority. Like, I'm not controlling playing time or anything, but you take your little stuff that you have, and then you just implement it the way you like it. Like I said, there's no blueprint for anything. And that was excellent and exposed me to so much stuff in terms of, how this program does it, championship level, their professionalism, all the people that they're meeting, the networking. And even with that, I'm still like, I want to create my own path. I want to do this on my own. I'm going to put you on as a reference, but I'm really not going to tell you I need you to, or give me an opportunity, so that's when I get into the realm of me being a Division III coach, part-time, new city, first time being a head coach, and I'm struggling financially, but I've still got this. It's going to be full-time. It became full-time, and then you get full-time and you're trying to do all this stuff, And then like, I can't do what I'm doing at University of Connecticut. This is Division III. Like, I don't have a 7'3" person down low. I don't got two NBA point guards, so it's little stuff that you adjust as you go, but you don't know that all the things that you did leading up to it got you where you were, and you're taking these skills that you're not noticing onto the next level. Because when you get to that level, going from academic advising or even coaching, and when you become a head coach, who sets the academic plan, who sets the study hall plan, who sets the culture and expectations, what's tolerated at practice, how do you present yourself? I always used to wear, because for my dad, suit and tie all the time. Brian, just like you talked about, some people look at you. I was a young head coach. They looking at me. I'm going in financial aid, trying to make sure our student athletes has their package together, and they're like, students are supposed to be back here. I'm like, excuse me. Obviously, you don't go to any games. I'm the head coach. Just little stuff like that, where it's just like I took every little thing and took those steps to get to where I'm at now. But all the journey in its fullest was nothing was planned. Someone saw something in me and gave me an opportunity in which that a skill set that I didn't realize that I had just through the observation. Because it's a lot of times you go through. I'm a very, very humble person, and I just do it. Whatever needs to get done, I'll get it done. And I'm not going to be big on congratulating myself or talking about this and that. But then you get to a point where what, you do need to talk about what you do. You do need to advocate for yourself. You do need to show people exactly what you're doing. And from that point, even with my student athletes, you really need to be proud of what you've done. How many people are first generation students? Almost 90% of them raise their hand. Almost all the positions I've been in. How many people that that played in school and are back at home in the same neighborhoods? Like a million people. I said, who do you want to be? And they're like, well, we want to keep on going. We want to get through it. All right. So that motivation enough. You already know what it is. So, and you know where you want to get to. What's holding you back? Let's talk about this stuff. And this is before it was very natural to talk about mental health. It was very natural to talk about, what's really going on. I had athletes where they would go just be perfect throughout the year and just have a huge blowout. And I'm like, what's going on at the end? In the practice, I still got to be a disciplinarian, but at the end of practice, I'm like, what's going on? Talk to me. And like, this is the anniversary where such and such passed away. This is I haven't eaten in 3 days. I haven't done this. So it's a lot of stuff that goes on that you don't know, but once they start talking about that, and then you start bringing yourself back to when you were there or similar to it, because everyone's unique. I hate when people say, oh, I dealt with the same thing. No, you didn't. That person is an individual. That individual has a different situation than what you had. But even like I said, just honing on to all the different stuff that I was learning from helped me to get where I'm at, but it helped me be able to approach certain situations and help be more of a mentor and give more guidance. Because I start off, everything is great, you guys can do whatever you want and this and that. Then I turn into a very realist saying you can get there. It might not work out, but you don't know what's going to happen during that journey if you try to get there. And there's alternate paths of what you want to do. You might not be a professional athlete, but you might be able to work in a professional organization, doing ticket sales, doing whatever. It doesn't matter. You can still be around that umbrella. And then when I started to accept that, that's when I started saying, you know what, being an athletic director, I didn't think I was going to do this. I actually can do this. Going into what I'm doing right now, I think I can do this. But overall, I really feel that for us, for Black males and Black women in athletics, especially higher education, we need to help each other more. We need to absolutely help each other more. We get there, we get to a point, and then we stop. I made it. I had to go. I had to work so hard to get here that I'm not going to make it an easier path for you. No, that should not be the mentality. When you get there, bring somebody up, bring somebody with you. Even if they don't, you don't think they might have the skill set enough. Every job you get, you go through a training. You learn things. Not everybody goes from one. If I'm an athletic director at one college and I'm an athletic director at another college, the campus, the demographics, the curriculums are different. The staffing is different. The cafeteria is different. The commute is different. The area is different. So you're going to have to learn and adjust. So therefore, any situation that you're in where you're able to help somebody, even though they might not have that direct title of skill set that you're looking for, you can see certain traits in somebody where you can bring them along and mold that. And when we're in a profession where we don't do that, and we also don't open up about, we want this opportunity, we want this. It's very, very hard to get your way in there. So I'm throwing that out just because, if I ever get back into higher education, that is one thing we really need to address, that because we can help our own without having to worry about someone else helping us. And then I know every school has an EDI program. Let's really get into that. If you really want to do that, let's start a matriculation plan. And a lot of people are doing good things in terms of that too, in terms of just creating their own bubble of network of great young professionals, where whatever school or whatever organization is looking for talent, we have a pool to push through. Like I said, I got a whirlwind of different stuff that I was talking about.
No, it's good.
My dad always goes to the one topic, and we end up talking about.
My dad does that too. That's my mom used to always hate going to the store with her. She'd like, just go by yourself, because you say we're going to one place and we end up at Lowe's and Home Depot, and you ain't talking to everybody. So
started talking about Harry Potter, ended up in Game of Thrones or something.
Exactly. Hey, whatever. It'll all come back full circle eventually, But thank you for sharing that. We had similar journeys. When I was a student athlete. Obviously, I ran track in high school. And then I got a scholarship to a D1 school, New Mexico State University, where I, ran track there. And, but that journey wasn't easy for me, right? So I thought just being the fastest, I was going to get all kind of offers, and then you just go to college and you just run. And so I also grew up with my mother and father. So they didn't know the whole journey or the whole process of what it takes to be a student athlete. They knew she has the grades, she's doing well, you go to college, right? And so I didn't have coaches that really prepared me for that. So when I started to get calls from all these universities, Texas Tech and University of Texas, all these places, and they're asking me, do you have your clearinghouse? Do you have your SATs? Do you have, and I'm like, it's my senior year, and I'm just not hearing about all this stuff that I need. And so it was the most stressful experience of my life. And so New Mexico State University said, well, we'll wait for you. We'll wait for you to go in. So my parents riding around trying to find me a tutor. I'm trying to figure out how to pass this SAT. And I'm trying to figure out how to, do all these things in the summer of my senior year. So when I got to college, I ran and whatever. So once my college career finished, like when I finished my 4 years, I decided I wanted to run more. I wanted to try out to be on the Olympic team. And so there was they have like a trial. You go out to these different places, you try out, you got to get a qualifying time. So I missed the mark on that. And I remember just laying on the track crying, like, I mean, it was literally, I missed it by like a toenail to make it on the practice team. And it's like, well, what am I going to do now? So then I started to get into, they said, well, why don't you start coaching? Where else can you, start putting your passion for sports? And so I said, okay, well, I'm going to go into coaching. So then I got another curveball. They were like, well, in order to coach, you got to teach. I'm like, oh, hell no. Like more stuff, And so I had to go and do alternative certification. So went to get my alternative certification, got that. They were like, what do you want to teach? And I'm like, not math, not English, not science, like PE. Like I could play basketball all day. It's whatever. So living the dream in my 20s. Started to move up very quickly in the coaching field, right? So was an assistant coach, start working under people that I knew, like, okay, this person does not know track and I have to be under them. And so they started saying, hey, she knows a lot, because it's one thing to be an athlete, but it's another thing to be a coach, right? Everybody thinks because you played the sport, you can coach it. It's like, no, that's not at all. And so I started realizing, like, I'm really like a good coach. But then I had my challenges in the beginning because I'm like you, I'm very competitive. So when I stepped out on the track, I knew I was going to win, even if I didn't know. And if I was scared, you ain't going to know because I'm not going to tell you. I wasn't the girl to go up to people like, hey, girl, you so good. You did so good yesterday. Like, I'm going to beat you. Like, I don't know who you are and what's all
That
this stuff they talk about.
mama mentality that we
Yeah, I'm like, it's like
were.
going and popping up in here. And so my mom was very competitive as well. And she didn't even do sports, but she was like the type of mom, if I'm coming to this damn track meet, you better be in the front. I don't know what you need to do, but just be in the front. And
Mhm.
so just being very competitive. And I realized when I started coaching, I'm like, a lot of these kids really just want to be a part of something. So I was going nuts. Like, I'm like, look at your freaking race, and they're just like, I put 100% effort. It's like, forget an effort. Like, you need to be in the front. Like, what is you doing? So I had to learn, like, okay, how do I, meet these kids where they're at, right? Because obviously everybody's getting involved for different reasons. They're not all involved because they wanted to get a scholarship like I did. They didn't want to go on that journey. So I had to start learning, like, how do I teach them that uh, being committed to something is important. Starting something and finishing it is important. So I started finding ways to meet the kids where they're at. Hey, you
Mhm.
may not get a scholarship. You may not want a scholarship. Maybe you want an academic scholarship. You just like being a part of the team. Now I know where to meet you at. Now I know the kind of conversations to have with you. Okay, so this kid, hey, you do want to get a scholarship. Okay, so hey, it's about to be on. That means I should be expecting boom, 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 because this is what you need to get to the next level. So I started learning how to have these conversations. And then that started becoming easy, right? So then I started getting championships after championships and championships. But in that journey, I still had a lot of challenges of being, I got my first head job. I was very young. I was probably 20 something years old. So like I'm sitting on the bus with my girls and I'm wondering why the hell the bus is not moving, right? So I'm like, why aren't we gone yet? So the bus driver turns around and said, you need to be patient. Okay. When your coach gets here, we will leave. And so I'm like, I'm the freaking coach. Like, can we go, please? You know what I'm saying? And so he's like, and the kids, how high school kids are. So now they're playing like, you ain't the coach, you ain't, playing around. So now we're not moving. I said, okay, see, y'all gonna miss the 4x1 because you're playing around. So finally, people start realizing like, oh, she looks like some of the kids. But it was those challenges of people thinking, she's too young. She's too young to be a head coach. She's going to be out there playing with her girls. She's going to be out there,
Mhm.
just the warm up for the girls track team before I got there was the cha-cha slide at the time. That was what just came out, and doing the butterfly. And I said, so I first meeting, I said we would not be cha-cha sliding. We would not we would not have bonnets and slippers on at the track meet. So I just really came in there with this idea of, we're going to be everything that they said. We're going to be everything opposite of what they said we're going to do, right? So when you're like, it's opposite for me when I think about, we have that same little competition, you and I,
Mhm.
when it goes into coaching and education and so forth, meeting the kids where they're at. One of the greatest skills that I feel like tennis probably has taught you is patience, right? Being able to read the other person, your opponent, being able to not assume that they're going to make a certain move, but being able to react right when it happens, and having those challenges, being flexible of the ball going different directions, right? So there's some skills that you learned in tennis that we don't learn in track, right? Track is like, you go get it, like right now. And so I had to learn as an adult, like, this is not a track meet. you know,
Yeah,
you
it
just
took
slow
time to
down.
learn patience, though. Patience take time because if you're competitive, that patience goes out the window. So,
Real quick, real
uh,
quick. So when I started getting to coaching, like yourself, I started to realize that, man, I really love coaching. I really love being with the kids. I really love to see them, when they become lawyers and doctors. And I'm like, oh my God, that's what coaching is about. Now I can walk away from it because I have enough kids that I said I've sent to college and done all these things. Well, then I started realizing that the challenges and the problems that we started seeing with young Black males wasn't really them, right? It was the lack of information and involvement of the parents. It was the lack of engagement and involvement with the coaches. You and I were similar when it comes to having these conversations with our kids. In public schools, they tell you to be careful having this conversation, be careful having that conversation. Well, I remember always going into study hall, putting a word on the board. Today we talking about hunching,
Mhm.
and the kids would be like, what's hunching? And I would tell them, it's like pretending like you're going to do the real thing, but you really don't do it. It's too close to what you can be doing. And this is what happens, And so they
Mhm.
used to tell me, like my counterparts, so they were my assistant coaches, they were white. They used to always start writing anonymous letters, saying, she's talking about love to the kids. She's talking about self-identity. She's talking about self-control. And so for me, it was like, if I can teach you life, I can surely help teach you track. Like,
Mhm.
so let me get this life thing down and then we
Mhm.
can talk about track later. So people couldn't understand the relationships that I had with the kids because it was more important to me for me to put them on a journey that they were going to be happy with, right? Not living their life with regrets. So if you can talk more about that space for you where having to choose between, and it's a little bit different for a collegiate level than it is,
Mhm.
public ed, because you can have kind of different conversations, but you still have those boundaries that we have to, look at. But if you can just talk about being in that space of, you got this system, right? That's designed for you, go to college, dribble the ball, graduate in whatever you can graduate so that you can go on about your business. And whether you can use that degree or not, we're not worrying about that. We need you just to take care of what you're doing here. So you being in a system where I'm I need to go by the guidelines of NCAA or
Mhm.
junior college or whatever, but I also know my journey. I know that there's some things that's in that handbook that they need to know about and they need to know now.
Mhm.
How were you able to have those moments, and what did you do to make sure that you stayed professional but also made sure that you were allowing your students to grow in their own space? So talk about that conversation that you had.
Yeah. So, even like I said, from being in positions I was at the Division 1 level, and then being a coach at Division 3 and coaching at a junior college level, you got three different tiers of student athletes that you're dealing with uh, generally. So uh, when I take each one as a developmental tool and skill set that I learned from each one. My patience grew from being a graduate assistant, but like I said, because it was more of having that player be just basically building a conscience within that player to say, if I miss this session, oh, I'm gonna disappoint Jelani. And we had enough because I was there all the time. Being there, willing to help, getting them through stuff. They were always making sure that they didn't want to disappoint me. So that was how I got. We had great connections still to this day with the players when I was a graduate assistant. Then you go to the Division 3 level. I'm not offering scholarships. They're all paying tuition out of pocket. Those conversations come naturally because uh, we're dealing with student athletes that can, that qualify for the maximum financial aid, which we all know what that is in terms of, they can't afford it financially. And then you have, the middle class where they're not getting qualified for anything, but they're at that level where they can't get a scholarship to go play somewhere. So even from that point, we're talking about, hey, coach, I can't live on a dorm next semester. I can't do this. I might have to work during this time. And I got players that saying, "Hey, my babysitter is not here. Can I bring my son? I have him on the side. And it's a lot of stuff that you have a set thing that you think you're going to go into and do. Not when you start to have these and build these relationships with these real lives student athletes that you have, and the level of empathy that you need and humbleness that you need to have within yourself. Because a lot of coaches, every coach has an ego. I don't care what level it is. They have an ego in terms of they think that they know exactly what they're going to do. The adjustments, the best coaches always adjust year by year. I'm not saying your culture and everything. I'm just talking about adjust to each individual because you never know what's going to get thrown out your way. So
Your approach adjusts.
your approach of it. So it was those conversations came naturally, and a lot of it came out of because they finally had somebody that looked like them. Even though they they're more comfortable to come out and have these conversations, or be vulnerable, show their vulnerabilities, because they know how much that I've been reaching out to them, letting them know, having all of their voices heard, going on an individual basis, and even like I said, the junior college level is a whole different bag, but they're the same. It's a lot of similarities. It's just a lot of them, they've been prone to do certain things, and no one's checked them. No one said, what are you doing? That's not going to fly here. You've
Right.
been the best so far. Where are you at now? Why? Well, I was in this high school and such and such. Well, your coach ain't helping you in high school. Right now, I'm going to help you get out of this situation. No matter what's going, the outcome is, in terms of like, just trying to get them through what they haven't dealt with this entire time. You got to change. You got to do this. You got to do little things. But I think it's more of and I don't know if you had this. Even good thing is, they have a lot of my student athletes have somebody they can identify with, but that's also a gift and a curse, because there's a level of
Yes.
familiarity in which they don't approach you in the same way that they would a white coach. So because
It's
they're so
almost like the level of respect. It's
right,
almost you think
it's
that
so different.
they're supposed to talk to you a certain way because that's how we talk to each
And
other.
that's what they see in their neighborhoods. That's how they approach each other, and that's the natural communication. When they see, because all they see on TV, all they see in all these other different situations, when you see an older white male or woman in that position, the level of respect or the approach is different, and they do that without even noticing that. Even it's a couple of books that, man, I wish I had right off the top of the bat. But I know Doc Rivers and a lot of coaches in the NBA level even talk about that too, in terms of the different levels of communication that they have and how they get approached compared to certain players. But all of that stuff is combined into, just back like with both of you guys' background. You're dealing with a lot of stuff that is unheard from every individual situation. And we're supposed to take all that, bring it all in one, bring all these different people from all these different areas, different situations, bring them together to compete, wins and losses, still demand a high level of whatever you have set for your teams, and still be able to function and still be able to not get in trouble in the dorms, not have one bad day off and all this other stuff, and still having be able to communicate while also your coaching staff is still trying to navigate through that stuff too. It's a lot. It's
So
it's a bunch of layers within that. But overall, I believe that it's the more vulnerabilities that you show as a coach, the more open that the players will be.
mhm.
Because if you're there, you're coaching, especially when you're a younger coach. That's all you do. That's
Mhm.
nonstop. It's everything. It's absolutely everything. You want to make it right. You want to make it perfect. But stuff happens, and the stress happens, and you got
Right.
to really take a step back and say, you know what? At the end of the day, what's more important? We've lost this amount of games, but we had the highest team GPA we've ever had.
Mhm.
This person is now, a resident assistant. We
Right.
never had anybody working in at the college level. This person is actually, he's a singer. Like, like
Right.
like
Right.
it's all these different things where you get to see, and then like now it's really gratifying. I don't know why it always happens when everyone gets older and get into their own adulthood. I'm really starting to see the impact that I've had in
Yeah.
all those little situations, good and a bad, how it impacted them in different ways, in which I'm like, how? I told you that like you weren't going to play anymore, like
Right.
what
Right.
I told you. He's like, but they were like, well, yeah, but you the first one to tell me that, stuff like that.
Right.
So it's a lot of stuff that you can't go off the cuff of, but I've been in situations where I was that voice, because I wasn't in that position where as a graduate assistant, I'm with
Can't
coaches.
fire you because you ain't getting paid.
And yeah, I said, find somebody to do this.
Who
Good
gonna be
luck.
carrying all this stuff and running all around?
Exactly.
Wow. Well, thank you, definitely for that. And I'm glad that you mentioned about the approach, right, of how our generation now looks at us. So even with me, a lot of my kids or my girls would say, Dr. Hobson, like, why are you always dressed up? Because they're used to seeing coaches whistle, hat, tennis
Mhm.
shoes, always look like they're about to go run a track meet. So I said, well, I'm a woman first. So when it's time to go coach, I'll put on my coaching stuff. When I'm
Mhm.
walking the hallways and having conversations with people, then I'm going to look like I'm going to have a conversation with people. I'm going to be in heels. I'm going to be dressed up. But they don't know that. And then when you hear adults or parents saying, girl, you always dressed up. And it's like, well, yeah, this is a professional setting,
Yeah, my
but
pleasure to take that
it's a
too.
mentality that our kids, when they first met me, they were like, "Girl," and I said, "Hey, are you 40?" And they were like, "No." So I'm not your girl. Okay, so I'm gonna need you to find something else. But they didn't know, and so it's our responsibility to teach that to them, not only by just speaking but being right for your
Mhm.
young men to see you walking around and dang, he kind of looks sharp today. He kind of look not like your shoes. I like your socks, and now you could start helping them find their identity, within athletics because for so long we have made athletics their identity and not,
Mhm.
teach them who they are within athletics. So thank you for your vulnerability and just being that example.
I appreciate it. And just and everything that you said goes exactly what you had on your shirt. Authentic. The authenticity of what they try to define you as and what you are. So you can define yourself as this because now you have a voice and you're able to have examples set in front of you in which you didn't have in the past, or you didn't know that existed while you were moving within your journey as an athlete and also as a student, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of different layers. We could talk about this topic for you're the
Yes. Even
doctor.
when you
You're
get
the
up into even when you get in sports at a higher level, they
yeah.
have their own stigma there too, right? They have their okay, if you're a woman and you're athletic director, you should look like a wrestler. You should look like you just
Mhm.
like you're a man. You should look very masculine. And so when I would go to interviews with lipstick or I would go to, I would have to always in the back of my head know, okay, well, don't wear your hair too curly because then you're going to look too much like, like they can't take you serious. So should I pull it back? Should I straighten it? Should I take off the lip gloss? Should I put on, so we still have to deal with those type of stigmas that's been placed on us when we look at athletics or even higher education. Even when you look at HBCUs, you see a lot more white, right, that work in HBCUs because it's like they fit this image of I don't know. That's what success looks like. I don't know what it is, but it's like that kind of stigma always continues. And that's why we deal with so much now with kids with mental health or even adults is everybody's trying to find out what am I supposed to look like to be considered this? What am I supposed to be doing to be considered that? And
Mhm.
we haven't learned yet like okay, how can you be you and still fit into this space or create your own space, right? Because a lot of spaces that are out there for us we don't fit in. If there are people like you or like Brian, we don't fit in certain boxes, so when we show up it's like why you got me in this box, like
Yep.
I
Yep.
need to get out of here. And they're like, well, if you want to do this, this is the box that you need to be in. And then once you're in that box, they keep you there, right? Once you're a coach, you're not supposed to be an athletic director, a leader, because that's the journey of the football coach,
Mhm.
and so we have this, I don't know within our community of, what an athletic director looks like. What does somebody look like who's an athlete? What does somebody look like, when we think about I always talk about LeBron James, where he knows his value within sports, right? So there's not too many things that get past him that he doesn't voice his opinion on, right? Because he
Exactly.
knows if I don't dribble this basketball, you won't make any money, right? And so they kind of let him do what he needs to do. And I feel like he does a really good job of modeling that to our athletes. So if you can still operate in your gift, but still be true to who you are. And so I think he really does a great job of doing that in that space because you look at Cabernet, he was the same thing. But at the time when he was doing it, people weren't really doing it. So they had to get him out of there. And now here we are. Now it's all over the world. And it's like, well, come on back. We want to have you back now. That, and he's like, I'm good.
Yeah, exactly.
But not too many athletes can strip away that athletic identity and still be able to operate in who they are. So I really appreciate you doing that and being that model for them.
No, it's always it's great, and it's getting better now because you're starting to see it even in the podcast form. A lot of people are starting to talk about more than just what they did between those lines, and they're starting to align together. This is the greatest time to be a student athlete, and to get into this profession, because you're really starting to see everybody has their own identity, their own journey, but they're being more open, and it's more accepting, and to be yourself, to be your individual self, regardless of what outcomes that or past that you have. And then, like, I know Shannon Sharp just had a sound clip that they just put up, just talking about him growing up in the South, the way he speaks. He went from this area to the Hall of Fame, and even with something that he thought was a detriment, in terms to the way he speaks, is actually his greatest gift, because it's him and he's being his own self. So everyone, like I said, they're trying to. You can take guidance, take as much information that you can, but just don't forget, you actually you are an individual. You have your own identity, and don't be afraid to be who you are, because if you get comfortable enough to do that, you're in the right position that you need to be in, whatever path that you try to go to.
That's so real, man. We could literally go for another
I know.
hour, an hour. I just wanted to just mention one more thing that you spoke on. Just keeping it real, how you weren't the best student, once upon a time. And it's important for us to tell those parts of our story, because we can have that student athlete, or just student in general, that feels that the fact that they're failing right now, whatever quantifies failing, they feel like that means that their path is doomed. A lot of people look at the fact that I've got 3 degrees in higher ed, 2 bachelor's, a master's, and I got 2 years of doctoral studies. And they have no idea. I was kicked out of college. I was a college flunky after my first 2 years, 1.76 GPA. And they look at me, and when I'm able to tell that part of the story, so many more eyes open, so many more hearts start back beating. I guess it isn't the end of the road. So I'm glad that you did mention that, because some people can look at where you were back then, who never engaged with your journey, and then see you now. How did you, of all people, how did you make it here?
We still talk about that to this day. I just got up with a couple of my guys from college. They were like, how was the manager in the study hall with us? But like, it's sophomore year, I was like, because it was mandated to stay at school. I was struggling. But they don't. People are afraid to talk about stuff like that, but they don't know. Just like you said, man, I just think master's degree. I was like, it's no way I'm getting. I don't even think about master's degree until you got to take a GRE. You should get into this. And then when I got into it, I was like, I love it. Absolutely love it, because I'm focusing on my major. I don't got to take all these tough prereqs that I don't even care about. But but still being able to overcome and just keep having that real conversation, saying, I don't care how you started. I don't care how difficult it was. That doesn't define you. That one hiccup does not define you. But being able to have those conversations, a lot of people don't do that. That's a lot of people. Even with our own, we always say, oh, he's successful. He got here. They never talk about how hard it was, or where they messed up to get to that journey. Because that is a part of their identity and their path to which they got to. So everything is necessary. Everything is needed in terms of having these real conversations, especially with student athletes, where they've been taught, especially if they're pretty good, that they're going to be the next best thing in this sport. And when it hits the fan, they have no one to turn to, and they don't know where to go, because they've never been able to have that chance to open up, learn more about themselves, see more things outside of their particular sport, or being able to voice other stuff that they might be interested in. So all that, everything is needed especially when you're trying to help those that are looking to start their journey within their career or just within their life.
Yeah. I had told a student the other day, he was doing like a speech on, I always go visit these leadership classes and watch them do different speeches or whatever. And so he was talking about how important it is to be in basketball and all the opportunities they're going to present to you and stuff like that. And so at the end, they had a Q&A, and I said, what is the percentage of, what is the percentage of going to the NBA? How many athletes go to the NBA? He was like, I think like 50%. I said, no.
And it's harder now.
I'm like, I didn't say go to an NBA game. I said be in the NBA. Like, but they don't know that, right? Because even us as coaches, we're telling them, oh, you the next, like you said, you the next this, you the next that. He may not be, but maybe he'll be the next manager that, will
Mhm,
make money. Maybe he'll be the next one that make the shoes for his or design the NBA players' clothes that's
mhm,
more accommodating for a game day. I don't know, but we
mhm,
don't teach them that, right? So we really do our kids an injustice, especially our black males, when we have them just so focused on that certain area. I always tell the story about my brother just being an athlete and being an athlete and making it to a certain level that we were proud of him. But for his own journey, for his own expectations, he had the dreams of being in the NFL and doing all these other things. And so internally, because we don't talk about our mental health, because we don't talk about our struggles, we don't talk about when we're hurting, we don't talk about our struggles, he internalized everything. So I always believe that he passed from uh like a silence depression, because just dealing with it in himself. And so I'm so glad that we have um we're still not all the way there yet, but it is becoming more of a acceptable conversation to have, because I know that in our community, if for a black woman to say, hey, I'm not having a good day today, or I'm having some challenges, most men would think, ooh, you got too much going on, you got too much drama, right?
mhm,
So we don't share those things. And then for a man to say, today I'm not having a good day, man, I'm having some challenges, I'm having some struggles, especially financially, to say as a man, I don't have the money. I know how I feel, or how it would feel for a man who's grown up being the provider and the protector, knowing that they have to have a certain amount of money to be considered whatever. And a man saying that to us is like, you don't have no money.
mhm,
You crying, or you're hurting, or you have challenges. Now it's like, he's weak, right? So in our community, we really have done each other an injustice of not really allowing us to have that space to say, like, let me have a moment. I'm gonna bounce back out of it, but just let me have this moment without it being like, well, I've always gone through that. And I think you mentioned that earlier. People
mhm,
always trying to share their experiences, or our kids saying, I want to be like you, Brian. I want to be like you, and it's like, you don't want to go through the journey. I'm trying to lead the way for you so that you can do something else, like you mentioned,
mhm,
better than me, like our parents will want for ourselves. And our kids today deal with much more trauma than I think that we have dealt with. We've seen some things, and some of the things that some of the challenges we've had, we created. But a lot of our athletes that we deal with now, they are like born into a messed up situation, like really messed up.
mhm,
So sports can definitely change their lives, but the approach on how we sell sports to them, and really having those real conversations are so imperative, because our kids are dealing with a lot of trauma and mental health. And so I want you to just kind of briefly, before we close out, just touch on what do you do for yourself, right, in that mental space? Because with athletes dumping it all on you, or being in that space of everybody, they think that you're the dumping spot, in place. And a lot of times men don't, have their own space. So if you can just talk about what you do in that space when it's like, okay, this is a lot. Let me deal with what I need to deal with. And how do I still make sure I serve the kids or the athletes that I need to serve in that space?
Well, one of the biggest things that happen, you hold stuff in for so long, it's going to come out. So what in my with my experience, my biggest thing was, I think I was in my third year coaching. I had 2 great years, and then the third year we were losing a lot. So, and I'm trying to find different ways to get stuff down. And then my roommate at the time, shout out to Austin Ash, he was like, "What's going on?" And I would just started venting, and it was like this huge like lift off my shoulder, because we usually just say we're okay, and then I just deal with it myself. So I opened up and I started talking about everything and all this other stuff. And then, he was like, he just listened. And then he started talking about the stuff he's dealing with, because he was going for his doctorate at a time. It's so much stuff and then we started talking. And then my own group of friends and networks, we just started talking and being open about what's really going on, the stuff that you can't say, to usually to the next person, but we all have similar situations, no matter what profession, no matter what you're doing. So it gets to a point where you have to be uncomfortable and vulnerable to be able to get to a point where you're at peace in terms of where you're not stressing out about a lot of stuff. When you're a young professional, and I just got finished talking to I did a panel with my company at Volo, and just talking about first year experiences. And, I'm talking to a lot of the younger coworkers, and I'm saying, look, you're going to mess up. It's a lot of stuff that I learned new that I messed up. It said, but you know what I did? I called this person. I called that person. I needed help with this. I needed help with that. I messed up on this. I didn't feel bad, but I told them I'm not going to make that mistake again. I opened up, and I'm very comfortable. And people are willing to help if you are willing to open up, and not being so worried that I got to be perfect in situations. None of us are perfect. But it's so difficult for us, for especially Black males. Just find just one of your friends you talk to about everything else. Talk about what's going on in life. Talk about what you've been having your own personal talks. Just dealing with your own stuff with yourself. Open that up, because you never know exactly what they're going through or their certain approach to certain things. So it's just the vulnerabilities happen, but don't let it happen when you're at the point when you're at your last straw, and it just you're just drained and you can't take that weight on your shoulders a lot. And I know Brian sees this a lot. Being a social worker, they take in so much internally, and then it shows in so many different ways, especially with athletes. Like I said, they show it out on the court, they show it out on situations, they show it out in certain areas, and they say it's out of character, because it is out of character, because no one's asking them or talking to them. They're not even comfortable enough talking about what's really going on. So that's even like when I used to play pickup, I used to be a hothead. So now they're like, "Oh, you're so calm now." I said, "You have no idea how I used to be." I said, "I'm calm because I'm like, why am I going to put myself in a situation like that? Or it's not that big a deal. I've been there, done that. Or I've been able to have this relationship with this person enough to know that I can have a conversation with, and we're on the same page. Or he's not going to judge me off of this, because I'm comfortable enough to know that that I already identified what my vulnerabilities are, or what stuff makes me uncomfortable. So you can't pit that against me, because I already know what I'm dealing with. But that's, even though we got a long way to go, it's not. I don't think anybody, until even my old teammates at Temple, it took us years, until the mid 30s, for some of us to really have conversations as like heart to hearts. What's going on, what happened. And we had a real big one when we did a collective Zoom, watching Coach Chaney's funeral at Temple. And it was exchange stories, see where everybody's out their life right now, just talk about the stuff in the past. And then just like, man, this person really, even though like some of them might had a difficult time with that, coach was like, coach really set the tone with this, because he made me feel that I can be able to do this as a man, or I can do this as a man. And we are having conversations now where, we're comfortable enough with each other, where we can talk about life and how the difficulties that we have. and how we navigate through that together. Because your situation might be different from my situation, but it's so similar in different facts. So it takes time, but if like I said, nowadays the way everybody is very more acceptable, but we have to make it acceptable for each other, for us to come out and be able to have these conversations and get to the point where we can express ourselves and be open about stuff.
It's a whole bunch. It's a whole bunch of real, and I absolutely love it, man. Um, Sherelle, we say it a lot that we got to get some encores, but we got to go ahead and initiate because we need part two. We need a part two. But
Absolutely.
man, yeah, we rarely go. What time are we at now? We're at almost what, an hour 20. We rarely go this long in an interview. So if we
I thought it
if
was
we
my
go
fault.
No,
no,
it's not your fault. No.
if we go past an hour, it's some good stuff, and we're not about to stop it. But man, like we really thank you for everything, for just speaking on the importance of vulnerability, speaking on the importance of choosing your own path, important of not forcing your path on the next generation. So many things of value that you shared with us. Is there anything that you got coming up? Anywhere we can support you? Any type of just kind of tell us where we can find more about you, all that good stuff.
All right. So obviously, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's literally how me and Dr. Sherelle connected, and then having the pleasure to meet Brian. You never know who you're going to meet in those paths. So please connect with me. You never know who I know that I can connect you with. Also, like I said, my company is Volo, Volo Sports. I'm out here in San Francisco. We're in 7 different cities, from Boston, Baltimore, DC, all the way to Denver, San Diego, and of course, like I said, San Francisco. We're adult sports, social sports company. Any sports you can think of, we provide it. It's a great way to meet new people, still stay involved. I know a lot of people did intramurals in college. This is a great segue into that, but also having a good social atmosphere so we can literally be one of the best parts of your week, and look forward to every single week while you join our leagues. And please, if you can, I put this on my LinkedIn, but please donate to our Volo Kids Foundation. Now, a lot of companies say that they do this for the kids. We absolutely 100% do this for the kids. So you can find us, the Volo Kids Foundation. And if you want to donate, please donate to on Venmo at Volo-Kids. And make sure you put San Francisco in there so we can make sure we provide tons of opportunities going into next year. And so they don't have to pay anything out of pocket, but they can have all the sports and all the activities and coaching and mentoring they can get out here. And thank you guys so much for having me here. Great podcast, great things that you're doing. Don't give up your journey, because I know this is just, you guys are going to look back at this and say, man, remember we started here? And then when I see you on TV years to come.
That's it. That's it.
Absolutely.
We
But thank
appreciate it.
you for just being you, and thank you for first accepting the invite. But it was definitely a blessing to have connected with you, and we're now family, and we're on a mission, right? So we're on a mission to change. We need to make change, and the only way that we're going to make it is collaborating, partnerships, building these relationships with one another for the betterment of our athletes coming up, right? So I thank you for that, and I know that God has not finished with you completely. You're going to be doing some amazing things, and we're just so happy that we're connected with you, because we're going to be right there watching you all the way. So thank you for being you, and thank you for allowing us into your world and your journey, and sharing the things that you've shared. And we just look forward to all your future endeavors. We know that you haven't even touched the surface yet of what you're going to be doing. And so we're going to congratulate you on that early. And so just continue to stay connected. So we will be sending some emails and contacting you very soon. And make sure also that our guests donate to the Kids Foundation as well. Again, this is not for you, this is for them. So we need to do a better job in the community of supporting one another, even if it's whatever you can donate, even if it's time,
Mhm.
find out how you can be a help and a blessing for other kids. So please, we are going to continue to share your content, share anything that you put out there, so that we can help our future coming up. And so thank you again for being you, and taking the time during the holiday season. I know you probably want to be in the malls right now, spending up all
No, I do not.
your big money. I know you want to be in the malls fighting the crowd, and blowing your horn at everybody. But I thank you for stopping by and being a part of the podcast. So we will put you in the backstage, then we'll close out.
Thank you, guys.
Sir.
Well, awesome show. And we're definitely gonna have to have some more conversations with him. But it was really nice for him to be able to speak on just a range of things, right? Just mental health, his experiences, his challenges, his growth, his company, why he's doing the things that he's doing. So it's amazing. You never know who you're going to meet, and the connections that are going to be met and made from just opening up, speaking to somebody, right? He could have told me no, and if he would have said no, he don't want to be on the show, it just would have been a no, right? But he said yes, and so now we have added to not only the Black podcast family, but to our community. We have brought more value to our community. So please make sure you do your job and share the content in the video, whether you're watching it live or you're going to watch it later. Make sure you do your job and just simple click share, and also make sure you subscribe on our YouTube channel.
Yeah. At the end of the day, guys, we're here for the community. Dr. Sherelle, she's got her thing going on in her life. I got my thing going on. But we desire not to be self-centered and only focus on ourselves, because there's so much that has been poured into us that can be of value to the masses. And then we just, exponentially pour on to that by inviting these wonderful guests in. So definitely feel free to continue to show up for our shows. Follow us on Instagram. We got a lot more content that's going to be coming out, reminders, so on and so forth. Check out our website. We are hsba.com. You learn so much more about everything that we've got going on. We're live now on Spotify. We're going to be popping out episodes every Wednesday, starting at the top of the year. So just check us out. You contributing to what it is that we got going on is you helping contribute to that next generation. So off that note, same place, same time every week. We may have a shift in an hour or so, but we'll let you know in advance. See you guys next time. Stay safe and have a happy holiday.